Imagine Dragon, Senator? Any idea?
Got to be 4. That's my guess.
At least 4. They're very good at singing.
All right, we were thinking when we asked you to come on, maybe we'll talk to you about health care. Is this thing really going to happen by the end of the week?
You know, I still sense that we're at impasse, and I said that yesterday at lunch with our Republican caucus, and everybody kind of laughed because, yeah, there's still quite a bit of disagreement. And there's basically 2 factions. There are conservatives like myself who don't want new federal programs. We want to repeal Obamacare. And then there's the moderates who kind of want to keep some of Obamacare, and they're not too opposed to new federal government programs. So what I've come up with, and I talked to the president yesterday about this, is what about dividing the bill in 2? Do the repeal, which no Democrat will vote for, repeal the taxes, repeal the regulations, and do a fix to Medicaid that helps to pay for everything. Reform Medicaid. No Democrats will vote for anything good like that. But Democrats will always vote for spending.
Sure.
And so the big government Republicans that want more spending take the spending and put it in a bill that the Democrats will vote for. There's about 20 different bills Democrats vote for every year. Stick it on one of those bills, and now you have 2 bills. Boom, you get it done in 5 minutes. And the president seemed open and interested in the idea.
Well, what about Mitch McConnell? We heard that he wasn't too happy that the deadline of tomorrow broke out, but he's also got 9 Senate Republicans who are opposing the bill. And then you've got the public. A brand new Suffolk University poll says only 12% support the plan as we know it. So maybe your plan would be a winner.
Well, see, the typical way in Washington that they fix things is they give everybody money, and that's what I think is going to happen now. They have $200 billion that's supposedly extra money, so they'll pass that around and see if they can get enough votes. But there's several of us that are fiscal conservatives that want smaller government, repeal of Obamacare, and the question is, are they going to try to get conservatives on the bill? If they don't, and we're still at impasse, then what I would say is, why don't we split the bills in 2, let conservatives have a clean repeal or a cleaner repeal, and then let the moderates vote with the Democrats on some big spending bill.
So, Senator, do you think that's what the president was referring to when he said there's a bit of a surprise that could be coming as early as Friday?
You know, I don't know. But I do know that it is my belief the president is open. I've had great conversations with him. I do believe that I connect with him. And I feel like we really are on the same side when I talk to him. And I don't always get that feeling when I'm working within the Senate.
Senator, how many people of the 10 that we know of that object to this are actually working towards getting a yes? And how many are just sitting waiting to be impressed?
Well, you know, I think half of them want more money and half of them want less money. That's why it doesn't work to have one bill, because every time you stuff more money in it for the moderates, it offends the conservatives.
Sure.
So if you separate the bills, you can keep stuffing things till the end of time, till the printing machine runs out of money. You can stuff money in some bill the Democrats like, and then probably you get the same result, but you'll get conservatives to vote for a cleaner repeal, but you just won't get us if you stuff a bunch of money in this one.
Senator, what's your message to the constituents that are watching, that are furious because they want this thing passed? Many people who voted for President Trump, they voted for him for repealing and replacing, and it's not happening. And many people think that it's because of the Senate, it's because of the House, that nothing's getting done. And you're one of those 10 that is not in favor of this bill that's currently in the Senate. So what do you say to your constituents?
Well, you know, it's probably not been a bigger defender of the president on the Hill than myself. I voted for him. I supported him. I still support him. I also promised to repeal Obamacare, and I just can't vote for a bill that keeps it. The bill as it stands currently keeps Obamacare. My fear is that with the money they're actually working on trying to keep more Obamacare and add more federal spending. You know, here's the worst thing that I see in the bill, one of the worst things. There's something they call a stabilization fund, $130 billion.
Slush fund.
Yeah, we're $500 billion in the hole this year, and they have a $130 billion fund, and they say, oh, we'll lower insurance rates by subsidizing them. It's like, look, I've got an old car. I want a new car. Could you have a new car stabilization fund? I pay high rent in D.C. for my apartment. Could you have a rent stabilization fund? You could lower any price if you thought there was no limit to the taxpayer, just to dump money to lower price. That's not the Republican way. It's not conservative, and it's not capitalism.
Sure. Senator, a moment ago you said you and the president seem to be on the same page. It sounded like you were taking a shot at the Republican leadership in the Senate. Them not so much. What's going on behind closed doors?
You know, I think that the president is a leader, and I think he has the ability to lead the way on this. And like I say, I think we're on the same page on a lot of this. I think if he leads the way and he tells them, guys, we're going to do two bills, one's going to be more repeal and one's going to be more of the federal programs, and moderates will get to vote for the second one, conservatives and moderates vote for the first one. I don't know. I think he could. I think he could do it. I think he has the force of personality and the bully pulpit of the presidency to do it.
But Senator, there's a compromise in this, and on the big picture, I know you can drill down on it because you lived it, because you grew up in the medical profession. You do get $321 billion worth of savings from the deficit, and more taxes cut. Those are conservative principles. If you increase Medicaid for moderates and you get your conservative cuts, isn't that compromise?
Yeah. There's kind of a funny math going on here. When they say they're saving $300 billion, it's off a baseline that's going like this. So spending goes like this, and when you pass it, you say $300 billion, it still goes like this, but you still have a $500 billion deficit. So it's not really fiscally conservative. In fact, we said we were for repeal of the whole thing. We're leaving that $300 billion is what we're leaving of Obamacare.
All right, let's talk about what's happening over at CNN. They had to retract that story about Anthony Scaramucci being connected, allegedly, they said, being connected to a Russian bank. And he's saying that's not true. I have an attorney. I'm going to go after you guys. I stand behind my record and my reputation. So now they're covering the Russia story in a different way. And they sent out an email that the press got their hands on of how they're changing how they're reporting on Russia. We had Anthony Scaramucci, the first time he's been on camera since all this happened, this morning on our show, and we'll get your reaction. But listen to this soundbite.
I had a couple of conversations with senior staff at CNN. I made it very clear to them that the story was not accurate and that it was a defamatory story. I reminded them about my legal background. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I worked on the campaign. I worked on the transition. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I'd like it to stop. It certainly was nonsense related to me. It's probably nonsense related to others. What I do think they have to do now is have more checks and balances in the system. They have to be more prudent about what they're saying about people. Because I think you're going to leave your own reputation behind. You're going to potentially damage the reputation of the people that you're talking about. But once you start to lose your integrity and your reputation as a news organization, people start to get tone deaf.
Sure.
So, Senator, we've heard all this in the mainstream media about collusion in Russia, and there's no there. So what is your reaction to the way the mainstream media is handling all of this? Is it backfiring on them and on the Democrats?
I've said since the very beginning, I think the whole Russia thing about Trump and Russia is a witch hunt. They're still depressed that they lost the election. It's sour grapes, and they're looking at things like, oh, so-and-so once upon the time met the Russian ambassador. Most senators in Washington have met the Russian ambassador and a dozen other ambassadors or more. So, yeah, I think that it's always been sort of sour grapes, witch hunt. I don't think there's any there. We've been studying it for 6 months. Certainly, if they had some sort of really smoking gun, they would have shown it.
Sure.
And the fact that they're not. But what I hate about this is we'll investigate this thing for the whole presidency. Now, the whole first term, this is going to be investigated. And then finally, they'll say, well, whoops, we didn't really have anything.
Well, you know why. They don't want him to get anything done.
Yeah, so it's kind of a misdirection campaign, trying to keep us off track of things that we can do that's good for the country.
And those people who keep saying that the president does not understand health care, what's your reaction?
You know, I think he has very keen insight into the political process. He has great instincts as to what would be good for business, what would be good for jobs. And so, no, I haven't seen that at all. When I've had meetings with him, and I've had lots of conversations in this last couple of months, I sense that it's a person who really does get exactly not only the intricacies of it, but gets sort of what would be good for America.
And when you play golf with him, just do yourself a favor. Don't let him win. Okay? You don't want to beat the president.
See, unfortunately, it's not letting. He actually beats me fair and square.
He owns golf courses.
But I will tell you, we were on the first tee, and he said, what was my handicap? And he offered to give me a stroke on each 9. And I said, no, Mr. President, I don't take any welfare.
All right. Good job. You stand for something. All right, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's hand it over, Jill. You know have some headlines for us.
Good Thursday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin with this right now. Today, President Trump will meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in for the first time. The goal of the White House meeting is to get North Korea to abandon its nuclear and missile programs. But the rogue nation's ambassador to the UN says North Korea will continue beefing up its nuclear arsenal, regardless of sanctions or military pressure. Now, this comes as congressmen on both sides of the aisle propose a new law that would ban American tourism in the country after Otto Warmbier's death. And now to extreme weather. Severe storms moving through the Midwest overnight. Multiple tornadoes ripping through Iowa and Wisconsin. And just outside Cedar Rapids, one woman was severely hurt after her house collapsed, trapping her inside. And a path of destruction from several twisters in Wisconsin, including damaged homes and overturned cars. And Arizona now under a state of emergency as more than 40 wildfires rage out of control. 21,000 acres have been burned, forcing evacuations. The fires burning in the same area. 19 firefighters were killed fighting the Yarnell Hill fire in 2013. If you're a Tebow fan, then go ahead and
play baseball.
cheer him on.
Do you like him? Do you like him? Oh, what? You love him. You love him, don't you? You're a Philly girl, that's why. Yeah.
But he's back in Florida hitting the ball well.
God is blessing him. He is such a good guy.
Right.
I love him.
And if you strike out, that means he doesn't bless you.
He's getting sick of winning.
That means you're a big-time sinner. Just kidding.
All right, we're going to step aside. More Fox and Friends after a brief timeout.
All right, the ball back in President Trump's court now, allowing him to follow through on a key campaign promise, making America safe again.
In just a few hours, parts of the revised travel ban are actually going to take effect. That as the White House rolls out brand new screening rules for airports, that is to say, worldwide.
It went so smooth the first time.
Rob Schmidt has all the details for us.
We're hoping for a much smoother round, too, is what we're really hoping for, yeah.
Chuck Schumer was crying last time we tried this.
It seems like he's always crying. All right, the president's revised travel restrictions begin tonight, starting at 8 o'clock. Travelers from 6 Muslim-majority countries who are not citizens, green card holders, or have ties to a school, business, or immediate family in the United States will not be allowed in for 90 days. Now, this affects 6 countries, and you've seen them before: Syria, Iran, Yemen, Sudan, Somalia, Libya. Also, all refugees from any country on hold for 120 days. The goal to come up with a new extreme vetting system to make traveling safer. The Supreme Court lifting blocks on the ban from lower courts that many saw as being liberal biased. That happened earlier this week. And if you're taking a big summer trip overseas, also expect tighter security on your flight back. That's the other news today. Homeland Security's top boss, John Kelly, calling U.S.-bound flights the crown jewel target for terrorists and rolling out brand new worldwide airport screening rules.
Our enemies are constantly working to find new methods for disguising explosives, recruiting insiders, and hijacking aircraft. We must put in place new measures across the board. Inaction is not an option.
All right, the new restrictions include stricter passenger vetting, explosive detection, including more bomb-sniffing dogs you'll probably see, and rooting out insider threats to airlines. Airports and airlines around the world that fail to follow these rules do risk an electronics ban on their flights coming into the U.S., or even a ban on them flying into the U.S. at all. The new global standards, seen and unseen, will be implemented here in the coming weeks and months. A lot of it you won't see, and a lot of it they won't tell us what it is they're doing,
right?
Which is the idea, so that you can't get around it.
You don't want to give them all the details.
You give them everything.
So tonight at 8, right?
Tonight at 8 o'clock, and I think I just saw a reporter walk out and head to JFK Airport. So we're hoping everything's smooth sailing this time, but no kidding. To wait and see.
Right, and by the time the Supreme Court gets a look at this, 90 days could be up. They might not even pass to read it.
That's the whole thing. By October, it'll probably be a moot point. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Rob.
Thank you, sir. Sure.
Coming up next on the rundown, the president promised that he's going to protect Americans from the people in this country that are here illegally. And today, Congress has a chance to deliver.
All right, there will be blood on your hands if you don't act. That is the message to lawmakers yesterday from families who have lost loved ones at the hands of illegal immigrants.
do your job, you know, protect the people. You know, we're here, we need protection. We're running around out here like lambs in the Serengeti. You know what I mean? Lions and all, everybody's trying to take advantage of us. All we have is you guys to help us. You know, we need you to let law enforcement do their job so we can walk the streets. My son thought he could walk down the street without being murdered. You wake up thinking about it, you go to bed. I mean, your whole life is just living the past, and you just can't move on. And to see the politicians act like it's just part of, you know, the circle of life to be shot dead in the street, that's just unacceptable.
Well, today the House votes on 2 immigration bills, and our next guest says these laws are crucial to making America safer. Here to explain is former Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member and Fox News contributor, Mr. Steve Cortez. Hey, Steve, good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. So as a Hispanic, and you are a Trump supporter, why is this so important?
You know, well, first of all, it's important for all Americans. I even hate the term sanctuary cities, because sanctuary for whom? It's not sanctuary for the cops who have to deal with these dangerous people. It's certainly not sanctuary for the victims, for people like Jameel Shaw, who we just saw, for his son, who was a young, promising football star. But I'd also say this as an Hispanic, most of the time, these dangerous illegals, look, you shouldn't be here in the first place. If you're not supposed to be here, if you're an illegal immigrant, and on top of that, you commit a crime, you need to be gone yesterday.
Yet the House will pass it, and the Senate could be stuck with it. How do you explain that?
Well, you know, Brian, I would say this. Political correctness, sometimes it's not just dumb, it can be deadly. Mm-hmm. And regarding Hispanics, by the way, very often the victims of these dangerous illegal aliens are Hispanics, because those are the communities in which they reside. So we all know about Kate Steinle, who was killed in San Francisco, an awful and very well publicized case. A less publicized case happened in Los Angeles, where Sandra Duran, who was killed by an illegal immigrant who was deported 5 times. So there you had a Hispanic, legal American citizen killed by somebody who shouldn't have been here in the first place. These are preventable crimes, and I give the president so much credit that he's putting America first, and he's saying political correctness, enough. We're not going to cater to a leftist lobby that wants to claim people like, I live in Chicago, people like Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Chicago, unfortunately, is practically the Wild West. It's so dangerous. And yet, what's he concerned with? He's concerned with protecting dangerous illegals.
They're broke, and they're spending all this money making sure illegals get proper, proper protection, proper schooling, everything on down, which is not fair to the citizens there. Real quick, a lot of people say, you know, on percentage, illegal immigrants are not committing that much crime. This is grandstanding.
No, listen, and by the way, that is true, and I'm not remotely castigating immigrants. I'm the son of an immigrant. All of us, if we're not Native American, are immigrants. So we love immigration, but I think it's an affront, by the way, to immigrants who do it the right way. It's a hard process to become an American. It's expensive. It's time-consuming. People like my father who do it the right way, it's disrespectful to them to say you can then hop the line and cheat the system and get in front of them.
The message to Americans, though, and I don't think the Democrats have grasped this, many people went to the polls to vote for Donald Trump because of this policy, because the message it's sending to hardworking Americans is, if you're a criminal, you're here illegally, you have sanctuary, you have more rights than the people who are paying taxes.
It's almost obscene, isn't it, Ainsley? You know, to think about that, and I will tell you that, you know, somebody who worked very hard on the Trump campaign, when I would go to rallies, when I would meet people, regular working Americans, this issue got them more fired up than almost anything else I could think of. Number one, it's about their safety, but also national security policy, having a porous border, which we had previously. The president's already securing our border, which is amazing, just months into his tenure. And also the economic policy of why should they have to compete in the labor market against illegal immigrants who are almost always willing to work for lower wages because of their status. So for economic reasons, national security reasons, crime reasons, we are going to get control. We are already getting control of our immigration system.
Steve Cortez, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great.
All right, 2 minutes before the bottom of the hour, a man drives his car into the controversial Ten Commandments monument just hours after it was put up. Where that driver is now and the effort behind replacing the monument. That coming up next.
There's a GoFundMe page. I bet a lot of y'all have contributed. And the mainstream media triggered by the White House's new press briefing rules.
has been the tension between the White House press corps and the White House, because they're changing the rules because of the way the first 5 months has gone between what they feel is unfair treatment and questioning on one storyline, and that's Russia, 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 and some of the inaccuracies. And this press office has taken action.
They have. Let's face it, we've heard from the White House that a number of White House reporters are grandstanders, or they're just trying to get into a confrontation to become YouTube stars. So now what they're doing is occasionally they will have the briefings on camera, and sometimes they'll be off camera. And there's one particular correspondent, Jim Acosta from over at CNN. He hates the fact that sometimes they pull the plug. Watch this.
What we're witnessing right now is just this erosion of our freedoms in terms of covering the President of the United States. This issue of turning off the cameras in the briefing rooms. Well, if I could hold up my phone tomorrow and live stream that press briefing with Sean Spicer or Sarah Sanders, whoever comes in there, and that is just where technology is right now. To think that we're going backwards and not having things on camera, to me, is just preposterous.
He's missing the camera.
Right. So the question is it that big of a deal? Is this that historic, that unprecedented, that a White House briefing would not be on camera? The answer is no. In fact, a lot of past press secretaries on both sides of the aisle think it should stop.
Ari Fleischer, who was press secretary for George W. Bush, and Mike McCurry, who actually turned on the cameras, together they sent out this tweet.
They said, "We support no live TV coverage of White House briefing. Embargo it and let it be used, but not as live TV. Better for the public, the White House, and the press."
Okay, so this all, the televised, and there's the Mike McCurry's version. It was during Mike McCurry as the press secretary when they actually decided they would go ahead and start televising these things. They were relatively boring until this particular presidential cycle. But it's interesting because Dee Dee Myers, who is also press secretary, she was on C-SPAN a number of years ago. We went to the back of the vault to pull this out, where she talks about how the Clinton White House knew it was probably a good idea not to have it televised.
I think that was something that we did in the first week or two. I can't remember exactly when we stopped it, but it was done. It was a new administration. I think we wanted to talk about what was going on here. I think we found that it wasn't really necessary. The briefing is more an opportunity to exchange ideas and to have a conversation about what's happening. That wasn't really happening in a way that as productively as we'd hoped.
Right, and if you watch, one of the main complaints is, I mean, once in a while you have a storyline that's maybe 50% of the time you have a storyline that's different from what's happening that day at the White House. I get it. But every single time they'll say, we're doing this in immigration, we're doing this on the economy, we've hired this person, and the first question is about Russia, Kislyak, and some other ambassador, and then they would just sit there and cut Sean Spicer off, and people lose their temper, ratings go up, reporters run out, they feel like they're big stars, and the administration was tired of being trampled on.
Well, here's the thing. The reporters still get to ask any question they want, and then the White House will answer it the way they want. So it's not like they're saying, okay, we're not going to answer any of your questions. We're just not going to answer them on TV necessarily.
Right. So what does it say about the reporters that want the TV cameras there? They want to be on TV. They want FaceTime. They want to be on YouTube. They want to be a celebrity and a star. When really, as a journalist, your mission is to get the story, to get the information so you can pass it on to the folks at home who are working and trying to put food on the table. We all are paid to go to the White House, to sit in the press briefing room, to get the information and give it to you, no matter how you get it. Does it matter if you get it on camera? Does it matter if you don't?
It does if you're on camera. And here's the thing. Rush Limbaugh thinks what's going on right now, the argument over whether or not it should be televised, not a good thing for the reporters.
Little Jim Acosta, who's chasing the red laser light, point around and bumping into walls and sofas. The media is now gobsmacked. They are in the process of humiliating themselves every day. They are embarrassing themselves. The latest example, and it's glaring, is CNN and the 3 people that had to resign or quit or whatever over the erroneous story filed about a Trump associate working with banks in Russia. This whole Russia story has simply consumed the media. Simply consumed them.
And it's very self-indulgent. It's like you focused on your lawn and expecting everybody else in the neighborhood to care about your lawn. This is your career. This is your report. And this is your problem that you've gotten to the point where the press secretary doesn't want to call on you anymore. I mean, Sean Spicer does not call on him, but he gets his questions answered. So as a reporter, you go on and say, according to the White House, they said this, as opposed to tossing to a soundbite of the White House. What's the big deal?
So what do you think? Rush Limbaugh thinks the media are humiliating themselves. Do you think it is important to see the person in the press briefing room asking the spokesperson the question, or do you just want to hear the words? Let us know, friends at FoxNews.com. We're going to read it all day long.
All right. In the meantime, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for you. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. Let's begin here. A man has been hauled off to jail accused of slamming his car into a controversial Ten Commandments monument, then posting it on Facebook.
Oh, my goodness. Freedom!
Police say that was 32-year-old Michael Reed, who has destroyed religious monuments before. He is set to appear in court today. The monument destroyed just hours after it was finally put up on Arkansas Capitol grounds after years of debate. Travis Story, General Counsel for the American History and Heritage Foundation, joined us earlier to discuss the effort to fund and replace the monument.
We're going to have to replace it. We're committed to do that. We made a commitment to the state of Arkansas and the people of Arkansas that we would bring the monument to the Capitol grounds, and we're going to be there to bring it back. And we are going to do that as quick as we can.
A GoFundMe page has been set up to finance that, already raising nearly $45,000. He's the only Democrat to win a special congressional